Hello everyone at Science and Nonduality. My name is Dr. Jiron. I'd like to present you with a drive-by version of a longer talk that combines my two passions, neuroscience and spirituality. It's called The Universe is Breathing. I'll start with some quotations from the literature from Krishnamacharya. Inhale and God approaches you. Hold the inhalation and God remains with you. Exhale and you approach God. Hold the exhalation and surrender to God. From the Yoga Spandakarika, the venerated Shakti, source of energy, opens her eyes and the universe is reabsorbed in pure consciousness. She closes them and the universe is manifested within her. Also a reference to breathing. From Thich Nhat Hanh, breath is the bridge which connects life to consciousness, which unites your body to your thoughts. Running through this thread of neuroscience and spirituality around the subject of breath is the idea that when we breathe, we take in oxygen that feeds all of the cells in our body, our circulatory system. But we also, according to the spiritual traditions, take in something called prana, which feeds our nervous system and gives us vital life force. The agenda for this talk would be as follows. Breath is oxygen, a brief introduction to the respiratory system. Breath is prana, a brief introduction to the nervous system, and then moving into the cycles of life and talking about a study that I did many years ago, trying to measure the effects of prana rather than just respiration, and then moving on to points to ponder. So what is prana? Well, most people who talk about it define prana as the vital force in every being. They go on to say that thought is the finest and the highest action of prana, meaning that as prana vibration changes, its form and solidity changes. Prana is culturally diverse. It's not just limited to the yoga traditions, also spoken of in the Gnostic Christians, in the Oriental traditions as chi, and in the Jewish tradition as the breath of God, or the energy that permeates the tree of life, as above, so below, that turnaround takes place in the heart and entails the energy of prana. Prana is considered to be a means to higher awareness. The more strength in your nervous system you can build, either through physical or meditation practices, the more prana your nervous system can carry, and as it carries more, it activates the energy nexuses or centers in your body, and those in turn awaken your spiritual awareness so that you can literally become more ascended the more prana that you can process, basically, and eventually reach that bliss where you are prana in action all the time. But unfortunately, so far prana has proven to be pretty elusive. This is a icon, this is a visual about photons, but I think it also applies to prana, the same kind of identity issues. Am I an X-ray? Am I a radio photon? Am I even visible? Oh hell, why worry about all that again? I'm not even sure if I'm a wave or a particle. So that brings us into what I want to talk about as the cycles of life, and there are many, obviously. But the one I'm referring to here has to do with a natural cycle of alternating relative dominance between the left and right sides of the body, not only in the central nervous system, including the brain, but also in the autonomic nervous system, including distribution of catecholamines, as well as in the nasal passages, that there is a lateralized relative efficiency of nasal passages. If we had a small mirror, you could hold it under your nose and see which nostril you happen to be breathing through at this point in the day. And that fluctuates off and on throughout the day and also throughout the night. The question might be, can this physiological cycle be impacted through yoga breathing, specifically through alternate nostril or uninostril breathing? This is a brief visual of alternate nostril breathing. Many of you know it. In right, out left, in left, out right. And the yogis say that if you deliberately manipulate which nostril you breathe through, you can change your mood state, your energy state, basically your state of being and your state of mind. They say that, the traditions say that the right nostril breathing has to do with sun energy. It's warm, it's active, it's externally focused, it gets you going. Conversely, the left nostril breathing is called moon breathing. It's a little more cool, it relaxes you, it calms you down, it's a lot more passive. And those kinds of breathing are also believed to be associated with the contralateral hemisphere. So right hemisphere breathing is thought to be stimulating relatively more in the left hemisphere, Conversely, left nostril breathing is thought to be relatively more stimulating for the right hemisphere. I know this right-left gets a little confusing. I'll try to keep it straight myself. This is a visual of how the human visual field works. The system crosses at an area called the optic chiasm, and as a result of that, the right hemisphere of the brain perceives relatively more of the left visual field. The left hemisphere in the brain perceives relatively more of the right visual field. So based on that premise, which we know is true, we put together an experimental method that involved having subjects engage in uninostril breathing versus control conditions, then having them do a reaction time task where their response time was measured in milliseconds to visual stimuli that was randomly presented on a computer screen, either to the right or the left visual field. Then we examined those results, hoping to find a change in visual field reaction time corresponding to which nostril these subjects were breathing through. The hypothesis was that faster reaction time would represent relatively greater activation for the contralateral cortical hemisphere. So faster reaction time to the right visual field would represent greater relative activation in the left hemisphere, and vice versa. We were able to find 40 right-handed healthy undergrad volunteers who were desperate for some extra credit and who had large nostrils. We also screened them for any respiratory infections or colds, etc. We assigned them randomly by coin toss actually, to one of two groups. The first group had a control condition, then right nostril breathing, and then another control, left nostril breathing, and group 2 had the opposite sequence. Each condition was for 5 minutes each, just quiet sitting and breathing, and we occluded their nostrils. We thought about using clothespins. That seemed kind of mean, so finally we moved on to surgical tape. Gentleman on the right is in the control condition. We wanted to see if there was any effect of just having tape across one's nose, so we wanted to control for that sensation. Subjects remained in their condition for 5 minutes, and then they did the reaction time task. And these are some of the results. So this is the results for group 1. Their sequences across the bottom: control, right nostril breathing, control, and left nostril breathing. Left nostril breathing should yield a faster reaction time for the left visual field, and we see that it did. But in fact, what really happened here is that the right visual field slowed down. Interesting. For group 2, again, lower is faster on the chart. The right nostril breathing should yield faster reaction time for right visual field, and we did see that as well. So basically, we did get the overall results that we expected. We also had a gender effect, which we did not expect. It looked as though the ladies had much more response to left nostril breathing. The guys were generally consistent across time, although they also showed somewhat lower response to left nostril breathing, but actually they went lower with right nostril breathing. So you guys, you're so contrary sometimes. But interesting that there was a gender effect. These are the formal statistics if you are interested in that. I won't go into that for this introduction. We can spend more time on it when I have a little more time to talk. In general, the left nostril breathing appeared to impact reaction time to the left visual field. Right nostril breathing did not show that consistent effect. Overall, the left nostril breathing appeared to be the maverick condition, or the one that yielded the greatest effect in general for everyone in the groups. Left nostril breathing, just as a reminder, would correspond to relatively greater activation in the right hemisphere. It's certainly possible that that was a maverick condition because it was the middle of the day. Maybe the norm for those subjects at the time was right nostril breathing and greater left hemisphere activation. So that's why we saw more of an effect. So what do we know about prana? We know that it's in the air we breathe. We don't know how to observe it. We know it's conveyed by the breath, but we don't know how it's made accessible to our body. We know it doesn't have to be through the bloodstream. It could be through other pathways. We know it can be perceived, but we don't quite know what it is. And we know that it's likened to electricity or a vital life force, but we don't know how to measure it. Just as a final thought before I leave you with this 10-minute introduction, if you woke up breathing today, congratulations, you have another chance. Thank you.